Hello.
Hello.
Hopefully
Good
we're going on
evening.
both channels tonight.
True. True. Good
Ah,
evening, everyone, and the people slowly trickling in.
yes. And I'm curious. I'm hoping, curious to see who comes in. Oh,
Give us a chat room.
got a
Drop,
couple more coming
drop a
in.
line. There you go. Deborah's here. Merry Christmas, sweetie. Back
Yeah.
to you. Yay. Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year.
Yes,
Forthcoming.
that's right. And
Deborah, are you ready for Christmas? Are you shopped out? Are you crafted out? Are you cooked out? Are you ready?
I remember years ago, my sister really would go all out for Christmas and all. And now the kids are older and all. It's I just don't have to do as much.
No, you don't have to do as much. Hi, Angela or
Hello.
Noel. Happy returning of light. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're
We're
on the
on,
upside now.
yeah, 21 is passed. The Great Conjunction just happened, which was really cool. And people are reacting to that, which is really interesting.
Had
And
a
the light returns. Yes.
I had a friend that I was talking to, and she's got a house at the beach, and she just went. She was calling me coming back from the beach, but she said she went down so she could get a good view.
Yeah.
And she said what was really cool was the reflection in the water. She could see it better than just looking up at it, which I thought was neat.
Yeah, that makes sense. The water would refract it.
Yeah.
Deborah says low key Christmas. So I'd make it easy on yourselves. Yeah, you're going to find that being a trend as the years go by. Christmas is a vacation. We can't all be the Griswolds
No.
with everybody in one house. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite satires.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, want to welcome everybody. If you're new to the show, welcome, welcome. If you're returning, we're excited that you're back again. And I'm Iris, and Margot is my sidekick here, and we co-host this every week. Please be sure to find us, like us, follow us, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, and Spotify. And yeah, so yeah, and share all you can, because we do want to grow our audience. We like what we share with y'all, and we want to
keep going.
Yes. And looking at where people are watching from, I think we're going good on Facebook and on YouTube, which is good. Either I hit something wrong last week. I don't know what happened, but one of those glitches. But this
Facebook
week I
got wonky. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, tonight's show is about God. And yeah, and some people might think, well, that's a little lofty or overreaching, but we're not afraid.
No, I was gonna say, hell no, girlfriend, you're going into home base. Now we're talking about going to the great within.
Yes. And so as we talk, if you have comments or questions or anything like that, please put them in the type them in, and we love seeing what y'all have to say. We got Lee Crandall Carter with us. Hello,
Lee
and Merry
popped
Christmas.
up. Yay. And Heather Hilton all joined us and said hello.
Yes.
Hello.
So awesome. So God.
No, you can just call me Margot. My friends call me Margot. Bringing that one on you.
Good job.
I was waiting for it. The next time somebody screams out, "Oh God," you can say, "My friends call me Iris. You can too."
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, thank you, but my friends call me Iris. So let's go with that. What are we talking about tonight?
Let's look at what okay, traditionally God has been seen as the
It's cocktail hour over here. Go ahead.
that's not just any kind of orange juice. That's our special juice.
It's fortified. It's
Oh,
mommy's special juice. Except for I'm not a technical mommy, but go ahead.
yeah. Okay, so
Sorry, get back on track here.
oh God. No, don't even go there.
Digging it in there.
Yeah. I'm digging myself deeper and deeper. The traditional sense of God is this omnipotent, singular man in the sky. Of course, it would be a man because he has to be
Well, the
in charge.
patriarchy, yeah, you're talking about, if you don't mind me jumping in, actually, you're
Yes,
talking about a Christian
yes,
perception of God, which is currently a patriarchy.
yes,
So therefore, you have
and
a Father and a Son and a Holy Spirit, and they completely have ignored the feminine divine.
exactly.
Right.
And then if you look at, like, I mean, sure, in the well, we know that there were the Roman gods and the Greek gods, and they were sort of a panel of he's and she's that were
Right. A pantheon.
running things. But when Christianity came about, all that kind of got whittled away, and because the men that were creating Christianity
At the time.
at the time didn't think women were worthy. I was born and raised as a Jehovah's Witness. Oh,
So my
so
views
Heather's
are so warped. Hey, Heather, I know plenty of mainstream Christians, Jews, um, Islams, and Muslims. They say the exact same thing. My views
recovering
are so
Catholic.
warped. Yeah. Sweetie, thank you for saying that, but honestly, you're not alone. Thank
Yes,
you.
yeah. Um. So you got this thing, and then of course, the Christian people think that other people can't have a God because theirs is the only God.
Right.
But yet every religion tends or does have some sort of central figure.
Yeah, some kind of main creator deity that overrides all other deities.
And so instead of saying, "Oh, let's all share," it's like, "No, I want mine. No, you got to have yours."
Exactly. But there were plenty of pagan based, I guess you'd say, or even earth based religions that did agree to integrate, such as Celtic. The Celtic
Yeah.
were fine with adopting Catholicism into their belief systems and pantheons. Santeria is an integrated spirituality. And if you look into voodoo coming out of the Caribbean, oh my God, they're about as Catholic as you can get,
Yes.
with a Caribbean twist that's that has indigenous flavors left and right. And literally every single saint has a parallel identity in that belief system too, that dresses and acts more indigenous to the islands rather than European sainthood.
Call me now.
All right, we're going to get Beetlejuicy here in a minute.
Miss Adele.
Daylight come and me one go home. There we go. Kisere. All right. Back on track. We're supposed to be talking about God.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, God.
God has a terrific sense of humor, so we are entirely on track, if you ask me.
And okay, so everybody claims a different deity, but it's really part of what we wanted to talk about was the unification of all of these and how they all fit together.
Yeah.
And I know you and I both agree, and
on this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, there is a singular source that every
Everything
thing.
emanates from a perceived to be singular source. I've learned to qualify
That's a
limiting words like that. So we perceive it as a singular source. And typically us tree hugging woo-woos and gurus and a lot of ooh-oos out there, shamanic people, we characterize it as unity, as the singularity, as the creator. There are some that say creator and creatrix, to give it a male and female, but that's going back to duality again. We're talking more about the unity, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if and the other commonality that I like that I've seen in is like the God particle that is
Yeah.
within each of us. Or I mean, even when you look at the traditional Christian texts and things that, you are a vessel of God and God is within and all that.
Yeah. The Church of
Guess
Christ is
what?
actually inside of your heart. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we are, because
Mhm.
we're all specks of the same, which means that we are all connected.
Even in traditional, exactly, even in traditional conservative belief systems, such as, and I'm not cracking on anybody in particular, I'm citing what I've been told by Baptists, Protestants, and ultra conservative Christian belief systems. Your humans are still characterized as children of God. You're still designated as at least a little piece of the great creator. Obviously, other belief systems go on to say you're children of God, you are a reflection of God, you are a part of God consciousness, all the way up to you are God, and that each of us actually is an embodiment of God, and every kind of um, gradation in between. But even the most conservative ones at least say children of God, which means you're a part of God, or
Hmm.
the original source, or as Heather Hilton pointed, she used a really nice neutral phrase, higher power, which
Yes.
is a nice neutral term. Lots of cool neutral terms being in the wedding business. Oh my gosh, people have all kinds. Wait, people hire us when they don't have a formal religion to officiate their weddings. So I've written almost 2,000 ceremonies. Yeah, lots of really cool terms come down the pike for what is divine. And higher power is a typical one. Divine creator
Hmm.
is a big one. Also, spirit and great spirit. Even
Yeah.
people who are not indigenous Native American tend to use words like great spirit and spirit. So the source is a common one.
I like what
Um,
Heather said. The
and
greatest thing I have learned in my journey to is all creeks, rivers, streams all flow to the same place, and that's a very good analogy.
excellent analogy. Excellent
Yeah.
analogy.
And I think, in especially in a world today where some people are so divisive and so, this is
Dualistic.
it. It's like, look at the wording and how similar the wording is in, the child being a child of God, or having the God spark, or being um
Having
at
Jesus in your
war.
heart.
Yeah, all those things, they're saying basically the same thing. But it's
Mm-hmm.
just people's perception and what they want to hear, or what they're able to hear.
Yes, there's a learning curve
Yeah.
that comes with age most of the time, although young people are catching on faster than ever before from what I've observed in this culture. But yeah, there is a learning curve absolutely in that. But historically, embracing God eventually requires you to look at your connection with God, and or what about you is or is not perceived as godlike. Where are you good at the godlike, or maybe where you feel like you're lacking in godlike? So then the next step becomes, well, what is godlike? What is goddish?
That sounds like a bakery item. I'll take 2 Goddishes and a Danish.
It does. It sounds very Hebrew. It sounds like a deli. It sounds like a Hebrew delicatessen. Can I have a Gaddish there? Put Kibbutzin over the price, darling. Give me the Gaddish.
Can you put that in
Wait,
rye,
wait.
please?
Let's
Maybe
lift
it was
this baby up to the slow-mo.
yeah. Oh my goodness.
Back to the temple. All right.
Yeah, and so one of the
Lee
things
says, I think the whole point of us developing religion is for social stability, to build community, belonging, and survival. Absolutely. That's why humans indulge in labeling their religious beliefs. It is a way to bond. It is a way to identify why nature, earth, physics, magic, and technology does what it does. However, the bleed over is what I just touched on. Whenever we run into a more technologically advanced society than our own, humans tend to automatically assume that technologically advanced society are deities. Case in point, when the Europeans started coming after Christopher Columbus and they came and checked out Mexico or Central America, and the Aztecs saw these white guys coming on shore in their little canoes from the boats. Two things. They thought these white guys were gods because of the technology and the armor and the metal and the tools that they had, and the guns and the blades, the metal forging. And they assumed that they were gods. Another interesting point was when they documented it in history that they saw these strange white men approaching. They could not physically see the European ships docked several hundred yards off the coast. They physically saw nothing because they had no reference to see a European seaworthy ship. Therefore, it was not in their conscious. They had no reference for it. So in their mind, from their point of view, these humans were materializing out of nowhere and coming across the water in little boats that look similar to their canoes, so they could see that. But it took them days and days of saying, "You can't see our ship. It's right there. It's it's brown and black and white. And there's such and such on the side. Nope, there's nothing there." And eventually, they had to learn to see it. So
I've heard of that phenomenon.
yeah, and that happens all the time. I once I learned about that phenomenon, I noticed when I do that myself, I don't notice things that I don't have a frame of reference for. And I have also noticed where people who want to manipulate society use that principle all the time to sneak things through that you don't notice. There's a TV show called Brain Games or something like that that illustrates that point. They have a guy in a gorilla suit run through
Yes.
a basketball game, and then they ask, "Did anybody see the purple gorilla?" And less than half actually see the purple gorilla.
Yeah, I don't know what the name of that. And Angela was asking, "Do we know what it's called?" And I don't know what the
I think
phenomenon is.
somebody would have to look that one up. I can't remember what that's called. The name of that. Angela, assuming that you're asking about what's the name of that phenomenon.
Yeah,
If we
but
don't have a frame of reference, we don't know it. We don't see it. And this ties back into, what is your frame of reference for God? It's based on what you were told growing up, which is what your parents were told growing up, which was what your grandparents were told growing up. And since then, what you read, what you hear, what you see, which is why people who are born in the 90s and later are actually much harder to fool because of the information age. They are research hounds that they often don't get credit for. But yeah, they are
But
much harder to get.
I will challenge that a little bit though, because on the
Okay.
flip side, our education system is teaching them for the test. They're not teaching them to be critical thinkers. So a lot of them will take at face value. And I really saw that a lot when I was teaching classes on the community college campus to the younger students, where, do I need to know this for a test? No, you need to understand the concept. Don't worry
That's
about what the
true.
answers are.
That's true. You're right. The critical analysis kind of thing does kick in, when they hit, mid-20s, later in 30s, when they start seeing the evidence of what you and teachers like you pointed out. Guys, you're memorizing material and not getting the concept. Yeah. Yeah, take a critical thinking course in college.
Yes. And
Online.
I was constantly taking, and I would explain to them, look at a baby. A baby learns to roll over, then it rocks on its knees once it gets on its hands and knees, then it realizes it can move, and you're learning things, and he's adding to what he already knows. And that's the same thing that you're doing all through school, adding to what you know. And then how do you take what you know and apply a new concept and relate it?
That's personal growth.
Yeah.
And that's spiritual growth. So the concept of what is God is a terrific example of that human process, which is pervasive, as we just pointed out, everywhere in our existence.
Yeah.
So you have Iris, you had a little bit of a syllabus of what you wanted to cover today.
Well, one of the things I wanted to kind of segue into, before we do that though, let's show off your necklace real quick, so we can, or not real quick, but you know what I mean.
That's all right.
Hurry up, get that out of the way.
Get it on there. Throw it up there. Some of you have seen this before. This is actually, I've called this the keys, Aeys. And it's a necklace that I made when I founded LUA, Light and Energy Workers Association. I founded it back in 2000. Well, it was created in 2003. It was founded in 2004. And LUA is multi-faith. It is non-denominational. And I created 5 necklaces, and they all resemble this one. That each charm, I'm going to get as close as I can to the camera. Each charm on it represents many faiths. And I stopped counting at 150. All right, that was enough for now. But there's more. But just to give you an eyeball of what we'll start from this side, this is a healing hand. You can see the little spiral on there. This is the I Ching. This is a crystal Merkaba. You can see all the little points on it. This is a phoenix. Tons and tons of Central American and South American belief systems. These are Native American feathers, a brass one and a silver one. This is Christian cross. That one is the feminine divine. She has a little swirl on her belly. Star of David, all the Judaisms. Buddha. And then we get up to the Om, a lot of Near Eastern, Indian-based, Nepal religions. And over here is a little tiny human skull.
Well, it's not a human skull.
It's not a real skull. It's not a monkey skull or a cat skull or a bird skull. It's in the shape of a human skull.
Yes.
To recognize, like I said, Santeria, Voodooing, and all those similar type religions that, and actually there's Mexican social like Day of the Dead, that the human skull is a sacred object.
Yes.
So, yep, I strung them all there with the intention of inviting all of those beautiful energies to participate in whatever spiritual event is going on at the time. And I made 5 of them, and the other 4 have long since gone to other LUA members who wear them when they want to too.
Nice.
But I thought this was a nice reflection of the many faces of God across cultures.
Very true.
Tonight was a good time to wear it.
Yes. And like Amy said, yeah, it's a miniature skull.
It's a miniature skull. I got a little ET floating around here.
But some of y'all, one of the things that caught my attention in kind of thinking about what we were going to talk about tonight, to segue all of this is, and let me make this full screen. Some of y'all may remember the song sung by Joan Osborne, and it was written by Eric Brazilian. And What If God Was One of Us? And as I listened to the song again, I was struck by a lot of things that were in the words, and that's why, I mean, I've taken out some of them because I'm going to put all the lyrics up there.
Right.
But you know, if God had a name, what would it be? And would you call it to his face? You know, hey George, if you were faced, yeah, maybe.
Andy walks with us. Andy talks with us, so his name is Andy.
Andy, yes. If you were faced with him in all his glory, what would you ask if you had just one question? Yeah, that's kind of, you know, what if you were standing there and this being said, I am God, you know, what would you think? And what if God was one of us, just a slob, like one of us, just a stranger on the bus trying to make his way home? And that really, to me, is representative of everybody that has a God spark in them.
Yeah.
You know, and I say he because that is an old habit, but
you can only say he, she, it, but so many times.
Right.
You end up swearing.
If God had a face, what would it look like? And would you want to see it if it meant that you would have to believe in things like heaven and Jesus and the saints and the prophets? And I liked this. He's just trying to make his way home, like back up to heaven all alone. Nobody calling on the phone, except for the Pope, baby.
The Pope baby in Rome. Yeah. But if God was one of us.
Yeah. And what was really cool was the background. I happened to come across the background of that making of the song, the writing of the song, and what it meant. And the songwriter literally wrote that song like in a night. And what he was doing was he just kind of had a little tune in his head, and he was playing it to do some recording to show his girlfriend how his recording equipment worked, because she was talking about 4 tracks and all that, and what did it mean, and blah blah blah. So he said, well, what do you think of this? You know, and you can see how, and he added some drums and, you know, stuff. And then she said, well, okay, that's great. Now you got to sing it. You got to come up with some words. And so he just started playing with it. And there was one part where he got stuck, and his girlfriend had already fallen asleep because she was, you know, waiting for him to finish writing a song. And she woke up and she popped out with some words that were perfect for what he needed for the song.
Altered state of consciousness. Yeah.
And then he took it and went to a meeting with like a producer, and Joan Osborne was there, and the producer said, Joan, you think you could sing that? And so it became and it was something that when everybody heard it, they immediately, you know, you don't get many songs about God in modern
mainstream
day music.
Mainstream music,
And so, and it just really was catchy and appropriate and all that stuff. But Joan Osborne talked about how angry people got at the song and how defensive, and that she actually got death threats and people protesting at her concerts and things like that. And it's like, really? What is wrong with that song that it would scare people so much,
right,
that they would get angry and want to kill somebody over a song because you don't talk about God that way.
Exactly. What are we triggering if your view is so sanctimoniously perfect, how come this turns you into a lunatic, into a dangerous lunatic? Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, no, you're no. Crazy has a home too.
And so it's just interesting, and we can take that into so many aspects of our lives. How many times have you gotten mad at a driver in front of you for doing something?
Road rage.
And then you did the same thing 2 days later. And it's like,
or something pops out of your mouth, you're like, yeah, dumbass, and then you're like, did I just say that to a total stranger for hitting the brakes a little hard? Wow. It's amazing how you can, things can trigger you that you're normally a really nice person.
yeah. And it's, and so
like, where'd that come from? Yeah.
I have found myself, and it's taken time, but over time, recognizing, I'll remind myself, everybody's got a piece of God. Everybody, and having that reminder, and then it turning into such an appreciation that we're all the same, yet we're all very unique. But we all have the same.
And that conundrum is one of the biggest truths that's out there.
I worry about you two addressing topics like this from the heart of the Bible Belt.
Lee, you are a riot coming from you. Yeah, it is. It is. And we talked about that too, about, where do we want to go with this topic? And do we, we need to talk about, we're not intentionally stepping on toes. And true, some of what we're saying does sound critical of some belief systems. However, we're also talking about radical behavior, such as violence for singers about God. And we're also talking about where some of those belief systems don't jibe with each other necessarily. So we're not creating new concepts. We're actually making commentary on information that already exists. So that's where we decided to be brave and talk about this just a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. And Lee says, I keep it under wraps until I can't anymore. Yeah.
And we all have bad days. Right. Absolutely. We all have bad days. We're all humans with a God spark in them, which is what I was pointing out a minute ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And because we are human, and because we're on Earth, we have egos. And that's part of the uniqueness of being
subject to triggering.
Do what?
Which means we're all subject to being triggered.
Yes.
Egos
meaning, insecurities versus, if you're insecure about something, but you believe something,
right,
then you're going to defend it all the fiercer.
And what's that called? Cognitive
dissonance.
Yay! I keep meaning to bring a bell. Chicken earring.
I've got a cowbell in the other room.
Oh yeah,
it needs more cowbell.
Shake your dog. Grab your dog and shake it until it grunts. I'm kidding. I'm just teasing.
Are you promoting animal cruelty?
I am promoting animals grunting at us for a second. Okay, new game. Mommy wants to play. This is.
Yeah, I do that, and then my dog would be jumping in my lap all the time, going, "Do it again, do it again."
Exactly, like a little kid. You would think throwing a kid up in the air over and over would be child abuse. They love it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But
just a parallel thing. But
and we know, I mean, with anything, I mean,
yeah, cognitive
shoot,
dissonance kicks in big time
and
when
and
people
and
discuss religious beliefs.
and really anything that you talk about these days can trigger
Almost anything.
somebody who's not stable.
Well, can I clarify that and say trigger anybody who's not feeling stable?
Ah,
Because I've
that's
seen,
cool.
yeah, because I've seen entirely intellectually advanced, stable, rational people who are research hounds come up with literally unreasonable, insane, emotionally based conclusions about current events, let's just say. And their reasoning is like, wow, okay, this is all emotional trigger for you, even though you are an intensely intellectual person. So yeah, if it's your stability around your stability around that one topic, not your stability in general, is what I've
Yeah,
noticed.
yeah, yeah.
Because some people can, just let me I'll step there just a little tiny bit. We're talking about religion, which is basically a social taboo to talk about. In polite company, you don't discuss politics and religion. Well, that's because that's two things that trigger people. Some people can trigger hard on religion, and they can talk about politics reasonably and calmly all day long, or the other way around. They get triggered on politics and they get fanatical. Thus the riots and several reasons, but one of the reasons for rioting in the streets for the past several months, and they can discuss religion entirely calmly. So where I'm going with that is something that I've been mulling over, and an edict, I guess, that I used to support up until about a year ago. And I used to go along with separation of church and state. And I went along with, in polite company or societal company, you don't talk politics and religion. And the change came for me, especially talking about religion, because that's part of my occupation. That's a big part of my whole life. Is one of the reasons we don't we are swayed away from talking about discussing political ideas and religious ideas openly with each other is because this is a terrific way to control social narrative on those keystone topics.
Mm-hmm.
It is a great way to keep people from exploring religious differences and ideologies. And the same thing for politics. It's a great way to stop people from exploring other ideologies in politics. Why is this a big deal? And I've been thinking about this for months and months. Why is this a big deal? Because the two things that affect every single aspect of human existence, and trust me, I went down the line. I thought about everything that could possibly happen to a human that I could imagine. Every single one of them tie back to religious beliefs and socio-political beliefs. Every choice you make is based on your religious or philosophical beliefs or based on your political socio beliefs, such as legal consequences or spiritual consequences, or legal rewards, legal social rewards, which is politics. That's the definition of politics, or spiritual rewards. So, reward and punishment for every single choice you make, from how many breaths you take to who you talk to, what food you eat, when you wake up, when you want to go to sleep, what you wear, what language you choose to speak, English or Espanol or anything else, or Jamaican man, or Japanese, but I can't remember how to say Japanese in Japanese. But anyway, on and on and on. Which gasoline you put in your car, whether or not you use debit or cash, if you're going to wear this necklace or a different one, if you're going to talk about religion or not in your podcast, if you're going to be dye your hair reddish brown, or if you're going to go blonde, or if you're going to go gorgeous Arctic blonde.
That's cool.
Those are socio-political religious choices, every single one of them. So why are we socially conditioned that it's not polite to talk about religion and politics in polite company? Food for thought. Why are we not allowed to discuss such crucial keystones in our human lives, human psyche, our society? And I just
Well, and it also keeps people separated.
That's one reason.
Divide and conquer.
That's two reasons. There are more. There are more. And we have future episodes that'll step all over those more in-depth things. Deborah, Iris's sister, who's also somewhere in this chat and watching us, gave Iris some really good advice about this podcast way in the beginning, weeks and weeks and weeks ago. She said, you guys allude sometimes to subject matter that you don't go into that's controversial. And she said, y'all need to either talk about it or tuck that away. Tuck that back in. And I love that expression. Sweetie, you need to just go ahead and put it out there or just tuck it away. And she is absolutely right. So if you're wondering, I'm alluding to something again. And Iris enjoys, she does the same thing every now and then. So eventually we're going to talk about such the more controversial sides that we're alluding to, but we're getting there gradually. And Iris chose an excellent stepping stone tonight, talking about what is God and what is our relationship to God. That's fundamental. We need to talk about politics and religion. Politics will come later. Thank
Because
you.
they tend to go hand in hand.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
we appreciate our audience. Such feedback. And by the way, we're always open to feedback. Please feel free.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know somebody mentioned earlier that, religion is something that people have died over.
Yeah, Amy made that mention, which is true. Yeah.
Lee says, having been raised by a civil rights activist in the 60s, the crazy and unexpected triggers me. I keep thinking about Mother Emanuel in Charleston.
Yeah, that perspective would set you there. Absolutely. Heather is still trying to decide if she's numb or if she's found inner peace. Honestly, sweetie, they are two versions of the same thing. Keep going. If it's working for you, keep doing it.
And then TV keeps masses under control, especially football and sports.
Yay! Yes, Angela Noel, you are exactly right.
Also, guys, again, divide and conquer.
Another divide and conquer. If you want to,
if you're not already divided by religion, you can be divided by your sports and follow it like a religion.
People do. Whole cities, whole cultures come and go with the ebb and flow of soccer or American football, depending on what continent you're on. But yeah, the number one advice from every reputable guru, and I do mean every single one of them, if you want to spiritually evolve, turn off your television set and leave it off. And they are exactly right. Now, personally, I pick and choose what I watch on TV, and I also intentionally cut it off after a certain amount of time. But I watch comedies. I got to have my laugh, I watch comedies, but you got to pay attention to what you're laughing at too, because commercials, oh my God. We could do a whole show about the travesty that commercials are, television commercials. And a half-hour show, 15 minutes of it is commercials. 10 to 15 minutes, or 10 to 12, actually, just to be real.
Yeah.
10 to 12
yeah. Well, we hit on it a little bit, too, because you've got the spelling that goes on with commercials.
Yes, jingles and so on. Absolutely.
But yeah, so I guess I know a lot of times we're preaching to the choir, because if you're watching, you're already kind of out there.
Yeah.
But we did want to, talk about, how the traditional ways of looking at God, and then inviting people who don't, who believe the traditional ways, to expand the possibilities and invite them to see that, when you, like I said, when you start recognizing that each of us is from the same source, and even if your belief is a traditional,
Mhm.
patriarchal, God,
Fearing.
all-seeing, all-knowing, yeah, you believe that God created all people.
Yeah.
Well, hello, they all deserve the same respect. And so if you're disrespecting the person next to you, are you really disrespecting God? What if God was one of us? What if he was just riding on the bus trying to get home? Yeah.
Wow, I'm trying to ride a bus. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just think
God is
it's,
one of us. Yeah. Whatever
and
that
that's,
means to you. Right.
yeah. Um, so, and I know in my own growth in the past several years, I've really been paying more attention to that, and trying to, and recognizing the value that each individual has, regardless of how they
Yeah.
believe. um there was something. Oh, one thing we mentioned I wanted to talk about real quick,
Yeah.
since it is Christmas coming up, was how when I was a kid, I believed,
Oh,
I would actually think about, oh, if God is omnipotent and he's watching and I'm getting out of the bathtub, ew, that's creepy. And then it hit me, Santa Claus. And if Santa is omnipotent too, then he must be like right up there with Jesus and God. And yeah, he,
it gets creepy at that point.
yeah, and it really does start getting creepy. And you were talking about how
Yeah.
you had,
I was aware of that at a young age, that it was the omnipotence of Santa Claus and the free reign that the Santa Claus had to walk around in your house while you're asleep and walk up on your children. Let me be specific, walk up on your daughters in their sleep. Everybody's not unsupervised. That freaked me out as a child. And Santa Claus left a toy one year. Instead of under the Christmas tree, he came up 3 flights of stairs to my bedroom at the end of the hall, and he left a present beside my bedroom door. We slept with our bedroom doors closed in my family because my parents were fanatical about fire safety. So I learned to sleep with my bedroom door closed. And I woke up and I went, Christmas morning, yay, walked up, opened the door, and there was a present right there with a tag and a bow that said, "To Margot, love Santa," and my sister, "To Julie, love Santa." It was a frog. It was a stuffed frog. And I froze, and I started hyperventilating, and I started freaking out, and I went screaming through the house to find my parents, and they're like, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And my sister, who's 5 years older than me, said, "I think she's scared," because she was right there. She saw what I was looking at. She said, "I think she's scared." And when I could talk, I was like, Santa came all the way up to my door in the middle of the night. And my parents were like, "Oh, shoot, honey, we need to tell you something." We hope.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
when I learned, that's when it was confirmed that, Santa Claus in this family was a fabrication. And it helped, it did. But yeah, the omniscience of Santa watching you all the time, that's very goddish,
yeah.
godlike. And that omnipotence is, okay. And honestly, I've got a whole lot more to say about Santa Claus and what Santa Claus also is, but we're not going to go down that road today. Um, and that omniscient part, we're talking about the omniscient part. And part of what we wanted to also talk about that you had in your intro, Iris, was personally connecting to God and the permission, social permission,
Yes.
and the spiritual permission and the energetic ability to always connect with your version of whatever the highest power is.
It is a divine right.
Yes.
It's not something that you have to lock away and put away, but that you can connect with. And whether you do that through prayer or through meditation or just knowing that this, because it's within you, you have that connection. And a lot of people keep it separate, and it's like, no, there's not a barrier, there's not a wall, you don't have to make a reservation, you don't have you know, you anytime, anywhere, any place, you can make this connection, and it's very easy.
It's instinctive, it's primitive, it's inherent that humans can commune with God at any time, any second, under any conditions, 24/7. We are never separated from the highest power.
Yes.
Spirit, God, the creator, the source, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
And there's been a lot of truth spoken about that, and it's people think, well, God left me and abandoned me and all, and it's there are so many things that we create beliefs that we then create the barriers. It's not God creating the barriers. And when you really start,
that's the social
realizing,
assigning blame for things that we don't like or can't understand, such as a sudden death or a murder or sudden.
yeah, my favorite is when a plane crashes and 200 people die and one person lives, and they go, God was looking out for them. No, I mean, yes, but no, it's not. That's not
how it works.
That's not how it works. And that, those, everybody was being looked out for, and there's a time, there's a purpose, and when you can't see the whole big picture, it's real easy to hone in with these little cliche things that don't,
and assign responsibility and or blame. Yeah.
And so so I very much have evolved to recognizing that the connection is always there, and I've known it even in the hardest times of my life. I've known that I was in touch with God, and I've done it different ways.
Divine presence is always around you, and it can feel different from time to time. You can have a different, and I say feel loosely. It can you have 7 or 8 senses, not just 5, as a divine being / human. And yeah, divine presence is with you, and even during the worst of times. And Christine, or I know we know her as Chris. Chris Gordon says 24/7, ladies. Thumbs up with a heart and a prayer hands. Absolutely.
Going back to the Santa thing, my Deborah says, when my daughter was 3, she was terrified of Santa. She kept saying, Santa's going to get you. Figured out my Southern friends were saying, what's Santa going to get you? And so she thought Santa's going to get you.
Yeah, the linguistics of that I was like, oh, that's brilliant. That makes perfect sense. What's Santa going to get you? Well, and the 3-year-old, what do you mean he's going to get me?
Yeah.
What does get you mean in your culture?
They're coming to take me away.
And now we're talking about Krampus, you know? We're talking
And
about
with
the
Christmas just 2
antithesis.
days away, I'm gonna jump a little bit off topic because I was telling you a story earlier and you said I needed to share.
Yes.
I was talking with a client through my daytime job, and she was asking, oh, so you're getting together with family for Christmas and all this, and and we were talking about our plans. We were sharing plans, and she said, well, my husband is insisting that we wear masks. And she said, I just don't know. And, and I said, I get it. Do whatever's right, and she said, and I understand his concern. But he's one of these, he's watching the news all the time and he's watching the numbers go up and all that stuff. And I said, I have to turn it off. I have to turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, so we were talking about it and I said, I hadn't really thought about it. I said, I know when I go to visit, I'll go over to visit my daughter and her husband and kids. And I said, and when we get together, I know that there's people that come to visit them and you don't know where they've been, or you don't know, like her husband who's out working, where he's been.
Right.
And then I said, God, it sounds like these old STD commercials. Are you using protection? Who have you been with? Who was the last person you were with? Who were they with? You're creating.
You have to notify the last 10 people you were in contact with.
Yeah. And I said, and the government wants to keep track of it and who you've been with.
Irish, what's the new definition for the phrase STDs?
Socially transmitted disease. So y'all, mask up if you want to be.
Mask up if you don't want your STDs.
Yeah. This is the condom for your face,
Facial condoms, baby, facial condoms. Our lesbian friends will be glad to help you teach you about those products.
Yes, folks, she went there.
We've got plenty of gay friends, no worries. They're freaking facial condoms. Or they're hoping that they are facial condoms. I mean, that's the intention.
Lord, that's another rabbit hole.
Another rabbit hole.
Yeah, so to let people kind of know what's coming up, because we do need to wrap it up. We've been here almost an hour, folks. Next week, on next Wednesday, we're going to talk about co-creating a new year, the do's and don'ts and positive energy of the new year, the emerging of the age of Aquarius. Yeah, talking about how to manifest. And so, and we'll do that and maybe a little guided meditation. And then the following week on January 6th,
we're hoping that we'll have a guest speaker. It depends on if he and she, it's actually two people, are available depending on what else is going on in the world. Let's say this person is a whistleblower, so to speak, on the socio-political scene, and he is also a spiritual leader, and she is too. They are a husband and wife team. However, January 6th is a big day. So in national and international politics. So the availability, we'll see. But sooner or later, we will have these people as guests anyway, at some point in the future, if not the week after. So,
but the idea is we're moving into reveals.
Yes.
And people reveals, what are reveals and who reveals what and all that stuff. But we're going to talk about things that and so we're going to talk about things that you see in movies, and later in another show we'll talk about things on TV. Just one quick example, if you've ever watched The Matrix, there's so much stuff packed into that movie that is more real than you realize. And so that's part of the reveal idea. But the guests we're going to have would help build a foundation for you to understand that better. But regardless, we can still talk about the reveals
and let
but
people
we're
have
depending on
whatever
whether he comes
context
or
they want.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then on January 13th, we're bringing guest in Courtney Lee Hudson. And the title of the show is Everything Isn't Always Rainbows and Crystals, but it's actually talking about the existence, purpose, abilities, and needs of indigo, rainbow, and crystal children and adults. What are they? I'm hearing more about them in mainstream, and so we were going to share more about what they are and who they are.
Spiritual
And
warriors, baby.
yeah, yeah,
They
very
have
much
an
so.
agenda. They have
So,
a very spiritual agenda. Yeah, but how they do it is what defines them. So,
yes, got
Chris,
some good shows coming up. We
Courtney
hope you'll join us.
Courtney has a ton of cool information, being one herself and having two adult children that are similar. And Iris has these vibes and information in her life and herself and her children. And my private website is Indigo Answers. For that reason, I study, work, support, and do research and so on for indigo children and their parents, crystal children, rainbow children, or sometimes called octarine, sometimes called other things. Buddha babies is another one.
Yeah. So
So,
yeah, so there's lots of interesting stuff there, and thank y'all for your thanks. We're getting comments here about people enjoying the show, and we greatly appreciate it right here. Remember, like, follow, subscribe, whatever
share.
you can do. Yeah, and share. We're on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, and Spotify. Um, look for Eyes of Indigo podcast, and we'll pop up
If you
there.
Google or DuckDuckGo it, that's what. Yeah, that would be us. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you all very much. We appreciate everybody that joined us today.
Love you guys.
Yes,
Have a
and we will see you next week.
happy holidays.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.